whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The Miller's Tithe. The village of Oakham lay in the valley like a thing too tired to breathe. It was not always so. Once the fields had run gold to the green wood's edge, and the river sang over its stones. Now the river ran slow and thick, and the wheat grew thin and rattling. The sickness had come not with a shout but a sigh. They called it the green palsy. It did not kill quickly. It was a thief of small things. First, a steadiness in the hand, a forgetfulness of a name. Then a limb would grow heavy, useless. The light in the eyes would dim, not to darkness, but to a gray haze, as if the soul within was slowly being clouded over. In the end, the afflicted would lie in their beds, breathing but not living, until the breath simply stopped. The cottage gardens grew wild. The forge was silent. Only the mill and the abbey on the hill seemed untouched. The mill stood where the river bent, its great wheel turning with a monotonous, groaning complaint. Bran the miller was a man of few words and solitary habit. He was a broad man, with flour ground into the lines of his hands and the weave of his clothes. Unlike the gaunt villagers, he had a ruddy health about him. He spoke little to anyone, simply collected his tithe of grain, or what passed for grain in those thin times, and took it into his mill. But Alara had begun to notice things. Her father, Edric, was in the final grip of the palsy. He lay by the hearth, his one strong carpenter's hands now limp as rags on the blanket, his eyes fixed on the smoke-stained ceiling. Alara, at 17, kept the cottage and the pitiful garden. She was sharp where the village was dull, her eyes a clear, watchful green. She noticed the mill ran at night, a low, deep grinding that was different from the day's work. She noticed Bran never brought the strange flour to market, only the common rye and barley. And she noticed, when she delivered her father's last sad sack of rye to the mill, a dust on Bran's sleeves that was not the warm gold of grain. It was a pale, almost luminous powder, and it smelled not of earth and bread, but of something cold and dry, like old bones left in a hollow tree. Like the air after a lightning strike, ozone and dust. "What flour is that, Miller?" she had dared to ask. Bran did not look at her. He brushed at his sleeve. "Chaff," he grunted. "Nothing for the likes of you. The abbot's due is different." The abbot's due. The Abbey of St. Eldrick stood on the hill, a silhouette of sharp arches and cold stone against the sky. Its monks were rarely seen in the village now, but they, like Bran, seemed immune to the wasting. They were pale, serene figures who walked their cloisters with an uncanny vitality. Prayers, it was said, protected them. Their tithe was the village's grain, and in return they offered intercession. Yet the village died and the abbey thrived. The night her father's breathing grew fainter, a resolve hardened in Alara, cold and sharp as a flint. She waited until full dark, until the mill's night grinding began its dreadful song. She wrapped herself in a dark shawl and slipped from the cottage. The path to the mill was a gray ribbon in the moonlight. She hid behind a thorn bush as the mill door opened, and Bran emerged. He did not carry sacks of flour. He bore two smaller, denser sacks over his shoulders, straining against their weight. He did not take the road to the village or the market track. He turned and began the steep climb up the path toward the abbey. Not grain, something else. When the sound of his tread faded, Alara moved to the mill door. It was barred, but the shutter on the upper loft was warped. She found a crate, pulled herself up, and wriggled through the narrow gap, landing softly in the fragrant dark of the grain loft. The day's flour, pale and ordinary, sat in sacks below, but the grinding noise came from a lower level, a subfloor she had never seen accessed. She found a hidden trapdoor near the great central millstone, cleverly fitted into the floorboards. The sound was louder here, a bone-deep vibration. She lifted the ring and let the door fall back with a soft thud. A set of steep wooden stairs led down into a gloom pierced by a faint, sickly light. The air below was freezing and carried that same smell, bone dust and lightning. Her heart hammered against her ribs. At the bottom, she saw a second, smaller mill. Its stones were not rough granite, but a smooth, dark stone veined with lines that pulsed a faint, phosphorescent green. They were caked with a glowing residue. Around the floor, in neat stacks, were not sacks of wheat, but small, heavy bundles wrapped in gray cloth. And on a shelf, beside a set of tools she did not wish to name, lay a small, polished wooden box. Something compelled her to open it. Inside were trinkets, a worn thimble, a child's carved wooden horse, a lock of hair tied with a faded ribbon, and a button of fine porcelain with a tiny painted rose. A button from her mother's best dress, the one she had been buried in 2 winters past when the palsy had taken her. The truth did not come as a shock, but as a dreadful, settling certainty, like a stone sinking to the bottom of a still pool. The green palsy was no natural sickness. It was a leeching, a siphoning. The abbey was drawing the vitality, the very spirit, from the village. And when the body was spent, Bran took it. He ground the bones here in this dark place to extract the last dregs, the residual spark, the chaff of the soul. This was the abbot's true tithe. This unholy flower was what sustained the abbey's vigor, its prayers, its prosperity. Her mother had not just died, she had been processed. A floorboard creaked above. Ilara froze, her blood turning to ice. The night grinding had stopped. Heavy footsteps moved across the mill floor overhead. There was a pause, then the trapdoor was flung open. Bran stood at the top of the stairs, his broad frame blocking the light. His face was not angry, but empty like a stone. "Shouldn't be down there, girl," he said, his voice flat. He descended the stairs. Ilara backed away until she was against the cold stone of the wall. He looked from her face to the open box in her hand, to the button she clutched so tight its edges bit into her palm. "Oh, you know," he stated. "You ground my mother," she whispered, the words ash in her mouth. "It's just the husk," Bran said, as if explaining the thrashing of wheat. "The life is gone. The abbot says there's a spark left in the bones, a last bit of fuel for the good of all." "The good of all," Ilara's voice cracked. "The village dies." "The abbey stands," Bran said simply. "Its prayers hold back worse things. It is an economy, a balance." He took a step closer. "Come with me, the abbot will explain." He did not ask, he simply expected obedience. And what choice did she have? He was a giant, and the only exit was behind him. Numbly, she let him lead her up the stairs, out of the mill, and onto the path to the abbey. The abbey close was a place of serene, chilling order. The grass was clipped, the flagstones spotless. The cloisters were lit not by torches, but by lamps that burned with a clear, steady white flame that cast no warmth. The abbot awaited them in a stark chamber, its only furniture a great oak desk and a standing crucifix of black iron. Abbot Corman was a man who looked both old and ageless. His skin was smooth, his eyes a bright, piercing blue, but his hair was white as snow, and his hands, folded before him, were long and pale as alabaster. Vitality radiated from him like cold from ice. "The Lara of Oakham," he said, his voice a mellifluous instrument. "Bran has told me you have seen our humble work." "Humble," the word burst from her. "You are stealing souls. You are killing us." Abbot Corman sighed, a sound of profound patience. "We are harvesting, child, harvesting what would otherwise be lost to decay. The green palsy is a collection. The spirit is gently drawn forth over time, leaving the body frail. At death, a remnant lingers in the mortal frame. Bran's mill frees it. We refine it here in our sacramental wine. This essence fuels our prayers, our vigils. It allows us to maintain a wall of faith that holds true darkness at bay from this entire region. Your village's suffering is a noble sacrifice. It powers the light that keeps a greater darkness from swallowing everything. He spoke with such conviction, such calm reason, that Alara felt dizzy. He made monstrosity sound like arithmetic. You offer my people no choice. Does the lamb choose the altar? The abbot replied. It is part of a greater design. Now you have a choice. You are healthy, perceptive. You could join us. Take Bran's place in time. Ensure the continuity of the work. Your soul would be safe, nourished by the communion. Or he paused, and the kindness drained from his face, leaving something polished and pitiless. You can join the tithe. Your spark will strengthen us. It is, I assure you, a quicker end than the palsy. He gestured to a crystal decanter on his desk, filled with a liquid that shimmered with that same faint, internal light as the residue on the dark millstones. The wine of souls. Ilara looked at Bran, who stood by the door, his face a mask of blank acceptance. He believed this. He was a part of the machine, a gear as unthinking as the stones he turned. She felt no anger at him, only a vast, hollow pity. Her fear crystallized into a single, cold point of clarity. She had to break the machine. She bowed her head, feigning defeated thought. Then she looked up, meeting the abbot's bright eyes. I need to understand. Show me how it becomes the wine. The abbot studied her, a faint smile touching his lips. He saw curiosity, he saw the desire for power, he saw everything but the lie. Very well, Bran, return to your mill. Prepare the latest contribution. I will bring our new acolyte to witness the transubstantiation. Back in the village, the first faint gray of dawn tinged the sky. Bran led the way, silent once more. Ilara's mind raced. She could not fight Bran, she could not reason with the abbot, but she remembered her father's old stories, tales from his own father, of spirits and protections, of salt purifying, of how a millstone could be cursed or blessed. As they entered the mill, Bran went directly to the trapdoor. Wait here, he muttered, and descended to the lower chamber. Ilara heard the sound of one of the gray cloth bundles being dragged across the floor. She did not wait. She moved to the sacks of common salt that Bran used to cure meat, kept in a corner for trade. She hefted a medium-sized sack. It was heavy, gritty. She crept to the open trapdoor. Below, Bran's back was to her as he fed the wrapped bundle towards the dark millstone's maw. No! She did not throw the salt at Bran. She aimed for the very heart of the process. With a grunt of effort, she hurled the entire sack down into the workings of the soul-grinding mill. It struck the central gear as the dark stones began to turn. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Salt, the ancient purifier, the element of grounding and breaking enchantment, met the concentrated residue of stolen souls. There was no explosion of fire, but of spirit. A silent, visible shockwave erupted from the millstones. The glowing green residue flashed into a blinding white corona. The gears shrieked as if in agony, not metal on metal, but a high psychic scream that tore through the air. The backlash traveled along the unseen line of power that connected the mill to the abbey on the hill. In the abbey, Abbot Corman was lifting the crystal decanter. The white lamps flickered, then flared violently. The decanter in his hand shattered, the luminous wine evaporating into a shrieking mist. The abbot's serene face contorted in horror. He looked at his hands. They were withering, desiccating, the skin pulling tight over bone, then crumbling to dust. A communal cry, thin and full of infinite loss, echoed from the cloisters as every monk, cut off from the sustaining tithe, experienced centuries of deferred decay in mere heartbeats. Where the abbey had stood, a brief, silent flash of white light, and then nothing but drifting ash settling on cold stone. In the mill, the dark stones cracked with a sound like a mountain breaking. The phosphorescent light died. Brand staggered back from the now-dead mechanism. He looked at his hands, not with horror, but with a profound confusion. The purpose that had filled him, the abbot's will that had directed him for decades, was gone. He was just a man in a dark room, the weight of his actions suddenly upon him with no doctrine to buffer it. He looked at Alara, his eyes clear for the first time. In them she saw not a monster, but a broken tool. Without a word he turned, walked out of the mill, down to the river, and kept walking into the deep, slow current. He did not resurface. The green palsy broke with the dawn. In the village, Edric coughed, a deep, real cough. He moved his hand, lifted it to his face, and began to weep. All through Oakham, the gray haze lifted from eyes. Strength, frail and tentative, seeped back into weakened limbs. The sickness was gone, evaporated like a nightmare in the sun. They emerged from their cottages, blinking, drawn to the mill by the strange silence where the grinding had been. They found Alara, standing in the doorway, pale and shaken. She told them a partial truth, of the abbot's corruption, of a dark pact broken. She did not tell them of the soul grinding, of their loved one's final desecration. Some truths were too heavy for hearts newly healing. They saw the cracked, stained stones she later dragged from the lower chamber and buried in a deep pit. They saw Bran was gone. They called her a heroine. They lifted Edric on their shoulders, and he clasped his daughter's hand, his eyes alive with love and gratitude. For a season, there was hope. The river seemed to run clearer. Laughter, forgotten and strange, returned to the valley. The harvest was planned, the first in years not overshadowed by the creeping gray. But when spring came, the seeds sown in the revitalized earth sprouted thin and weak. The leaves of the trees were tinged with yellow at the edges. By midsummer, the wheat, once promised golden, stood stunted, its heads blackened and blighted as if touched by frost, though no frost had come. The garden vegetables were small and bitter. The very land was sallow, leaching away. The true cost, the final clause of the abbot's terrible pact, was revealed. The land itself had been tied to the cycle. The soul tithe had not just sustained the abbey, it had fed the soil, a grotesque fertilization that had maintained the valley's vitality. The abbey's prayers had not held back external darkness. They had parasitically bound the land's fecundity to their unholy sacrament. With the mill broken and the tithe ended, the land was now starved of what it had been forced to consume for generations. It was withering from withdrawal. Zilara stood at the edge of the blackened wheat field, the village elder now in all but name. The people looked to her, their hope fading again, replaced by a new hungry fear. She looked from their anxious faces to the empty, silent mill, and then up to the hill where only the wind now moved through the ruins of the abbey. The choice lay before her, terrible and absolute, to let the land die and her people with it, scattering to beg in a world that might not want them, or to find a way to restart the cycle, to become the miller, to find a new abbot, to convince the village that a slow, sacred passing, a noble sacrifice, was better than a quick, starving end, to feed the land with the chaff of souls once more. The wind carried the smell of dry earth and dying greens. In the distance, the great mill wheel, motionless for months, creaked in the breeze as if awaiting a decision. Alara wrapped her arms around herself, feeling not like a heroine, but like a woman standing at a terrible threshold. The grinding was silent, but the echo of it would now haunt every waking moment, a question without a good answer, a price too high, yet a bill that had come due. She stared at the empty mill, and the future stretched before her. a path of shadows leading into a dark she now understood all too well.